the same format.
Absolutely.
We'll start with the 3 minutes and then the questions, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy and I are riding the same campaign trail today. It's really heating up, and including the weather, there's just so much going on in Marion County right now that is really excited. So my hat's off to you.
Thank you,
Kathy. Thank you very much.
Fun. Hey, Glenn, is it okay if I leave a couple of these here?
Please
if you
do.
haven't signed one, would you sign one, please?
If you like, I'll keep up with them before when they sign them.
Thank you. Here, I'll leave you a few extra then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And it's nice to follow up after Kathy, because one of the major planks in my platform is community. Kids, family, community. And I have 3 boys that have attended Marion County Public Schools. 2 of them are in college now. One is a senior at Westport High School, and he has been accepted to Florida Atlantic University. We just found out a week or so ago. And Sam intends to be an accountant. So we're very excited for all 3 of our boys. They've done very well, but I have some other comments to make, so I will move forward with that in a moment. Kathy is also headed to, as she said, the livestock pavilion for the show, and that makes me very proud to be able to share. If you saw the front page this morning of the Ocala Star banner, did any of you see the front page this morning yet? It would be wonderful to pick one up, because on the front page is my Hillcrest School, and that's all students with kids with significant special needs, and they show a hog every year. And Dragon, the hog, because we are the Hillcrest Dragons, returns every year, and this was year 20 for Dragon. And when you talk about community support of our schools, in the boom years prior to the Great Recession, Dragon sold for $26,000. That's a lot of money per pound, and it was a local guy that decided to support us at that level, which was incredible. So that's just an example of how the community comes together and just really steps up to support each other. So it's wonderful to be a part of that, and I intend to continue to be part of that. So I think that was my introduction, and now I'm not sure I'm going to have a chance to get to my remarks. How much longer do I have?
You're only halfway. The yellow.
I'm only halfway. I'm only halfway.
Time.
Okay. All right, because I did write a couple of things down, and I wanted to share my bio with you so that I wouldn't spend the time talking so much about who I am. And I wanted to share more about what I feel is so important about Marion County Public Schools. And I intended to keep my talk short and straight, because what I'm really looking forward to are your questions. And the first question most people ask me is, why are you running for school board? Are you crazy? And my answer to that is, no, I'm not crazy. I'm a passionate problem solver. And you know that 2 of the most important investments we can make are in our children and public education. And I think all of us, as the years go by, continue to become more concerned about the results of this investment. I know that I do. And because to me it is about results. What are our kids ready to do when they graduate high school? What kind of citizens will they be? Our young adults need to graduate high school ready to be functional, contributing Americans, and wanting to be. And a lot of us don't really think about this, but kids can start school as young as 3 years old, and typically they graduate at 18. Our special needs students, by law, can stay until age 22. That's 15 to 19 years, respectively, to get results. And that's what resonates in my mind, how important it is to make their public education fruitful so that they're ready to go when they graduate. A major part of my platform is vocational education. I think that that's something that's been lost through the years, and that's something I will work very hard to reestablish. That and finding quality teachers. It's probably no secret that we have a huge teacher shortage in Marion County, and that's something that we've got to address, and I have ideas about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. First question, please name 3 things you'd cut from the school board's budget if you were in office.
Well, there's about $16 million that will be cut from the school budget if the funding referendum, the renewal of that, does not pass. Maybe a lot of you already know that 4 years ago, a funding referendum was passed by the voters, $1 million. which is $100 per $1,000 of property value. So if you have a $100,000 house for math purposes, it comes to about $100 a year. And that was money very well spent because it was, and the ballot language was very clear, to bring back vocational education, art, music, PE, and to make class size requirements. Prior to that, the district was paying the fine for not meeting class size. So this enabled us to be able to begin to meet class size. So there's also an oversight committee made up of citizens like ourselves that oversee this funding to make sure that it's being spent in the way it was intended to on the ballot. And I'm happy to share that they have been very good stewards of these dollars. So that's something that I'm very proud of as far as our district is concerned. So that will be an automatic $16 million cut if that doesn't get renewed, which will have severe implications on our budget. Similar to what Kathy said, we had to do so much cutting during the recession. We laid off every first and second year teacher at one point. All of these young idealistic teachers that brought so much energy into the field. And then a few months later, magically the money was found and they began to hire some teachers back. But any teacher with a brain in their head said, I'm going to Lake County, I'm going to Sumter County where we have some stability and we have the comfort of knowing that our jobs are going to be there year for year. So that was another really tough thing. So there's been tons of cuts, and yet the need continues to grow. I know we're all aware of the horror and tragedy of Parkland, where the money's going to come from to help harden our schools and get ahead of school shootings is going to be a financial commitment. And you can't shut the barn door after the horse gets out. That doesn't work very well. We have got to make sure that we have the protections we need so we are proactive.
Thank you, Nancy. Nancy, what involvement do you see with the school board and charter schools?
The involvement I see with the school board and charter schools is that they are there, but it's very important to make them compete with us. I think the charter school movement was born out of two reasons. One, because there was dissatisfaction with the way public schools were being run, and a lot of that is understandable. The other part is that there is a lot of money to be made in public education by privatizing, and people want a piece of that pie. So for me, it's more about accepting the fact that charter schools, at least to some extent, are here to stay, but in Marion County, to make sure that we boost our public education system to the point where all students will be able to have the opportunity to benefit the way my Freddie, James, and Sam have had. My two oldest ones went through the IB program, which is a college prep program at Vanguard High School. It's been around for a long time. And how many of you have heard of Facebook? Well, one of the founders of Facebook, Dustin Moskovitz, is an IB graduate of Vanguard High School. He graduated in 2002. So that just goes to show you the quality of instruction that we do provide in Marion County. Also working at Hillcrest School with our kids with the most significant and severe special needs, whose needs can't be met anywhere else. We have a fantastic program for our students, and they are out in the community. They're volunteering to learn job skills. A lot of times you'll see students with Down syndrome bagging groceries at Publix and things like that. And I'm very proud to say that as a teacher from North Marion High, formerly, that one of my students, Jason, he has been at this grocery store at 441 and 326 through 3 different name changes of the grocery store. But Jason is still there. Yes. And he worked his way up from literally matching labels on cans to be able to stock, to realizing that the importance of reading and how it can get you what you need in society. And now he is a cashier, pays taxes, has vacations, and insurance. So, great stuff.
Very good, thank you. Nancy, what do you see as your role with the superintendent of schools? And do you favor an elected or an appointed position?
You know, it's almost impossible to say that I support appointed or elected because there's nuances to each, and it's worthy of further and deeper discussion. Off the cuff, I'm very nervous about giving up my voting rights. I think that's setting a bad example for our children. I think that what we need to do is encourage more people to become more informed and exercise their voting rights. Also, too, an appointed superintendent is contingent on the strength of the school board. And my goal, after getting elected, is to be part of a collaborative, problem-solving team that can agree to disagree respectfully, that's not a rubber stamp for the superintendent. And I'm an employee of Marion County Schools right now, so Dr. Mayor, I hope you hear me. I am not going to be your rubber stamp. That's just not how I roll.
Thank you. What is your remedy for failing schools?
My remedy for failing schools, again, let's not shut the barn door after the horse gets out. Evergreen Elementary is a huge example of that. That's a school that will be in my district. Also, Oakcrest is another failing school. That will be in my district. Wyomina Park Elementary is another failing elementary school. That one is not in my district. But these schools, and this has been going on for years, of low performance. Evergreen was at its best when they had Mr. Livingston, who is the current principal there now. I don't understand, it wasn't wisdom. There was no wisdom behind the decision to move Mr. Livingston 5 or 6 years ago. They've had a succession of principals since then, and it's gone down, down, down. Obviously, Mr. Livingston had the support of a very tough transient community, and he was implementing things that worked. And so my remedy for helping failing schools is every school and every community has its own needs. I mentioned Vanguard High School with the IB program. Obviously, those kids are going to make it. They have strong family support. So that school is probably focusing on other things. But in schools where family support is low and there's a lot of transients, we have to get them while we can and invite them in. It's not enough to say, well, the parents don't show up to meetings. A lot of our parents are very intimidated by the system. Maybe they didn't have good school experiences themselves. We can't expect them to come to us. We have to reach out into those communities and make them feel comfortable to come in the door. And that's creating that culture. And the principal is the leader of that, of setting that tone and helping faculty understand that parent involvement is not going to happen if you're afraid to call home. Parent involvement is not going to happen if you don't ask for a parent conference before the student goes completely down the drain. I feel like I keep saying, don't shut the barn door after the horse gets out. You can get ahead of this stuff by being proactive, and it's fun.
Thank you. Nancy, do you believe in corporal punishment regarding the students?
You know, it's interesting because a lot of the families that I talk to, they miss corporal punishment in schools. They feel like a lot of time is wasted, that if the student could just, get that spank and then get back into class and learn, they would be losing a lot less instructional time. However, in this day and age, corporal punishment is fraught with peril, even if it's done by parents these days. So I'm not sure that opening the school system up to that type of potential liability is in the best interest of our taxpayers. And I also feel like there are many, many other ways. I've worked with the toughest kids in the county, hardened kids that have already, been in juvenile detention and everything. And I never had to paddle any of them. So there's other ways to do it. And I think in this day and age, it's just got more negatives than it does positives.
Only 3 more to go. Do you support the one middle school property tax?
Absolutely. I worked very hard on that. I was vice president of Marion's United for Public Education for many years. Our group was the integral folks to get the word out to the communities. Again, we didn't expect people to come to us and say, well, what's the money going to be spent on, and is it going to be well spent? We had a coordinated campaign. We did phone banking. We went to PTO meetings. We beat the bushes and went house to house and let people know that this is what is at stake, and this is what the money will go to support, and this is why it's so important to have it. And I love the idea of it sunsetting every 4 years, because then it brings it back up to the voters, and it brings the voters back into the conversation. And it gives us a platform to say, here's what we've done with the money. And our own citizens have been on an oversight committee, and we can prove by the numbers that this has worked. And I've seen it with my own eyes. We have an art teacher for the first time at Hillcrest School. When you think of art therapy and kids with special needs, how important that is. And actually, we have a music teacher, but next year we are going to be adding an art unit, again for the first time. And those are really wonderful, wonderful aspects of any quality education. So yes.
Thank you. With all the reports of inappropriate behavior regarding teachers and students, do you know if there is a teacher's code of conduct? And if so, if anything, would you change? And if not, would you help get one in place?
We do have to take ethics training. However, that's only been in the last few years, and I've been in the system for over 20. And I remember our human resource director, as a new teacher, you know, you meet with the human resource director. And Jim Noel, he looked out at us over his glasses, you know, with his kind of long nose, and said, he kind of looked like Mr. Rogers. He said, 20% of you will have an inappropriate relationship with a student sometime during your career. 20%. That stuck with me. And I was a lot younger then, and I was teaching high school. And I remember walking in the first time through the cafeteria and having some big guy, he was probably a football player or something, say, "Miss, are you a student or a teacher?" He's like, "What, do you want to date?" And I stood up to him, looked him dead in the eye as high as I could, and said, "Young man, I am a teacher, and don't you forget it."
Thank you. Last question, with just what just took place in Plantation and Parkland. I'm sorry. Let's say you're in office right now. You've been elected to school board. What specifically would you propose for school safety? And please give as many specifics as you can, please.
Oh, yes. I was at Liberty Middle School yesterday for a meeting for a special needs student that is going to be coming to us at Hillcrest because his needs are pretty severe. And I noticed that Liberty is one of the newer schools. I think it was built in 2002. And when I went to go in, there was only one way to get into that school. And there were two office attendance clerks or office clerks in there. But they sign you in and you have a badge with a barcode. And if you don't have your badge with your barcode, they send you back out to your car to get your driver's license. And they do a very quick check on you. Also very interesting is that once I was cleared, the clerk had a key to the door and unlocked the door so that then I could go in. Not that I could have probably overpowered that clerk, but at least it was a start, and it was one in, one out. Very important. We have to know who's on campus at all times and where they are when they're on campus. The other thing that I thought was very interesting was that when I left, a lot of times they're just like, bye, but no, we had to sign out the same way we signed in, even though I was a known person. So that would be the first part. We've got to control the access to schools. That wouldn't have helped in Parkland, sadly, because that kid was smart enough or deranged enough to realize if he pulled the fire alarm, kids would come out. And that's really, really scary. As far as the perimeter of a school is concerned, and there's a lot of talk about this right now with arming teachers. And I know in Marion County, we have a lot of brand new teachers. We have a lot of substitute teachers. I'm not sure I'm comfortable necessarily with them carrying. However, what I'm very comfortable with is concerned citizens that are retired veterans like my father, that are retired police department, or just interested and able to help volunteer or pay. Again, if we pay them, it's going to cost money. But I would like to see them relate to students as almost like a Big Brothers type program, that they would build relationships with the kids. So it wouldn't be like someone walking around with a big gun and having the kids feeling really uncomfortable being at school, because although it's so tragic, the chance of someone being shot at school are relatively slim, but it's just so tragic when it happens. It's like a plane crash, So if we were going to go to more weapons on campus, I would want to make sure that they're carried by folks that we can absolutely trust. Again, if you saw the paper this morning, there was a teacher at Greenway Elementary that just got busted for selling methamphetamine.
Where?
Greenway Elementary School, yes. And a while back, a student brought a BB gun to school and she didn't turn him in. And I know that that's one bad example, and there's a lot of fantastic examples of teachers that are in it for the right reasons and working hard every day and getting very frustrated by the system. But it's a little bit of a powder keg there that I'm uncomfortable with. So I would love to see the community connect with us and help us problem solve through this process. But unequivocally, I can say controlling access would be a huge first step. Hillcrest, my special needs school, all kids that don't even understand danger, have a sense of danger, and a lot of them are in wheelchairs with feeding tubes and stuff. If you wanted to be really deranged, that's the school you would go and shoot up. We're not even fenced. We're open, we're cheerful, we're friendly, and it could be a huge disaster.
That's it from my end. If you'd like to wrap it up, tell us, excuse me, your closing statements. And please, if you can stay, you can go one-on-one if you have a question of the candidate,
It's nice
Nancy.
to see so many familiar faces.
You know, this is a great opportunity to do that, or maybe you have a question about how she answered something, so if you can please stay, I think it'd be beneficial.
Sure, sure. Just to wrap it up, and I don't know that this will take 3 minutes, but for me, it's about kids, family, and community all coming together. It's about not expecting people to come to me. It's about going out there and going to the people. I really enjoy that aspect of campaigning. I don't see myself as an aspiring politician. I see myself as an aspiring public servant, and there's a big difference. The other thing is that you may know that school board is a paid position in Marion County. In the northern states, one district might be just a couple thousand kids, and then they have a superintendent for that, and then on and on and on. So a lot of the school boards are not paid, or they just get stipends for their service. In Marion County, it's a pretty good pay. I think it's close to $40,000 a year now. You can look up, it's like $38,000 plus you get benefits, and if you do 2 terms on the school board, which would be 8 years, you get your retirement at a higher percentage than a student than a teacher that's done 30 years in the classroom. I see that as not being very fair. That's through Florida statute or statute. So for me, I'll be taking a pay cut, but it gets to a point where I think about how can I take my passion to a wider stage? And I feel called to do this. And there hasn't been anyone on the school board before with the depth of in the trenches knowledge, especially when it comes to students with special needs. And the young man that did shoot up Parkland, he was identified as a special needs student at age 3 years old. Yes, he was identified as developmentally delayed, and he probably then was future labeled for educational purposes as being a person with emotional and behavioral disabilities. It was no secret that this was a very disturbed young man. And the fact that the adults were unable to communicate well enough, including the FBI and the local police department and between the schools, to take this seriously, it's a breach on the adults as far as I'm concerned. You are not going to help raise a child unless the adults are communicating. That's the bottom line. We emphasize that every day at Hillcrest. We can't expect our kids to behave if the adults aren't on the same page and working together. We reach out to countless agencies on behalf of our students, and it can be exhausting, but our track record is great, so it's worth it.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for your time. I'd give you this if I didn't give you one of these.
Oh, yeah.
And on a serious note, if you would like, if you fill that out, I'll keep you on our mailing list, on our email, and if you decide you want to hear other candidates,
right,
you're more than welcome. You want to just sit in, you're more than welcome. And if you need petition cards signed, here, we'll look
Yes,
at
I
that camera
appreciate
right there.
Got us?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, everybody. And yes, I will.